They thought time was a river, unstoppable, eternal, unchangeable. But they had never met humans. Because when the galaxy tried to erase us, we didn't just fight back with weapons or ships. We struck a match to time itself and showed them that history was no longer their safe refuge. Before I take you deep into this story, if you enjoy these journeys through humanity's imagination, make sure to like this video and subscribe, because there are many more stories where this came from. Now, let's begin. The Galactic Council had always believed in absolutes. Stars would burn, decay, and collapse. Civilizations would rise, stumble, and vanish. The river of time flowed in only one direction, and their greatest philosophers, scientists, and warlords agreed. No force, no empire, no technology could ever alter the stream. Until they met us. The story began in the aftermath of a war that should have ended humanity forever. The Council had unleashed fleets larger than any we could field, wielding weapons capable of tearing open worlds. Earth had burned, colonies had been shattered, and yet, even with the ruins of our homeworld still smoking, we refused to die. The aliens could never understand why. Every other species they had conquered had bent the knee or been erased. But humans clung to existence like fire clings to dry wood. We adapted, improvised, and endured. And deep in that endurance, hidden away from alien eyes, something impossible was born. It wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense. No missile, no railgun, no doomsday ship. It was an idea, a theory scrawled on papers that no alien mind would have dared to imagine. A discovery so dangerous that even our own scientists whispered about it in fear. We had found the fault lines in time. At first, the experiments were small. A moment stretched longer than it should have. A bullet that should have killed an officer instead slowed, hanging in the air just long enough for him to move. And then, more disturbing tests. Fleets sent to battle, destroyed in the present, only to reappear a day before the conflict had begun, armed with the knowledge of how they would die. It wasn't time travel. That word was too neat, too childish. This was time arson. We weren't walking along the river of time. We were pouring accelerant into it, striking sparks, and watching it burn in ways no one had prepared for. The Council noticed quickly. They saw humans begin to fight wars that made no sense. Battles where we died, only to return already knowing the outcome. Fleets destroyed twice, thrice, until the enemy commanders began to suspect the universe itself was lying to them. And then came the first true terror. We erased a war before it even began. A council fleet had been dispatched to wipe out one of the last surviving human enclaves, a hidden colony on the fringe of known space. Their armada was vast, their intent merciless. But when they arrived, they found no resistance, no battle, no trace. Instead, their star charts shifted in real time. The colony they had come to burn no longer existed, because we had set fire to the timeline and undone the moment it had ever been founded. It should have been impossible. A contradiction. And yet, there it was. The galaxy panicked. For the first time in their long dominion, the counselors understood the depth of their mistake. They hadn't beaten us. They hadn't conquered us. They had forced us into discovering something far worse than war. Humans were no longer bound by the same rules of reality. Imagine for a moment what it meant. A commander makes a mistake. We burn the error from history. A fleet ambushed. We strike the match, and suddenly the ambush never happened. Every attempt to destroy us became an ember we could scatter into ash. But it wasn't without cost. That's the part the Council never saw. Burning time came with a price. The scientists who lit the fires aged decades in moments. Whole crews vanished into paradox, their bodies present, but their minds filled with memories from lives that had never been lived. Each strike of the match left scars not just on us, but on the fabric of the universe itself. The stars began to notice. Some of them flickered. Others collapsed early, as though unable to bear the weight of altered causality. We knew we couldn't do it forever. Time wasn't infinite fuel, it was fragile. Every burn weakened the structure of reality, and still, we kept going. Because survival demanded it. The Council tried to retaliate in the only way they knew. They attacked with sheer numbers, fleets beyond counting. They thought if they struck fast enough in enough places, they could overwhelm us before we could burn the moments away. But we didn't need to fight every battle. We only needed to set fire to the right ones. One by one, their victories collapsed into contradictions. Their proudest fleets never returned, because in one reality they had been destroyed, and in another they had never launched at all. The counselors began to doubt their own memories, their own records, their own certainty of history. They lived in fear of humanity, because for the first time they realized history itself was not safe. The galaxy gave us many names: the arsonists, the timeline butchers, the flame keepers. But we had another name for ourselves. We called ourselves the witnesses. Because every time we struck the match, someone had to remain. Someone had to remember the version of history that was lost, so that we didn't burn blindly. Those witnesses carried memories that no one else shared, wars that had never happened, victories that no longer existed, and deaths that had been undone. They were haunted by ghosts of realities erased, but they bore the weight because humanity could not afford to forget what the fire consumed. And so the war dragged on, not in years, but in versions. Version after version of the galaxy, rewritten and undone, until even the counselors began to whisper that humanity wasn't fighting them at all. We were fighting reality itself, and somehow winning. But then came the last match, the one we knew we couldn't take back. The Council had gathered its greatest fleet, a war machine so vast it stretched across systems. They called it the Eternal Armada, a force that would sweep away every last ember of humanity in a single stroke. And maybe, if we had fought them in the present, they would have won. But we didn't fight them there. We burned time back to the moment their shipwrights had first designed the Armada, and we destroyed it there, before it had ever left the docks. The galaxy shifted, warped, screamed. Whole centuries collapsed inward like a star imploding. And then silence. When the fire burned out, the Council was gone. Not defeated, erased. The galaxy itself had rewritten them as a people who had never existed. Only the witnesses remembered what had been consumed. Humanity stood alone, triumphant, yes, but scorched, scarred. The stars around us bore wounds that would never heal. Time itself was unstable, fragile, trembling with every moment. We had won, but the cost was a universe forever uncertain. And so we stopped. We put away the matches. We became the keepers of silence, the guardians of a history that no longer had anchors. The witnesses told their stories, reminding each generation of the truth. That once, when the galaxy tried to erase us, humanity burned time itself to survive. And now we live in the ashes of a reality remade, where the only constant is that we endured. If you've stayed with me through this fire-lit journey, thank you. Humanity's stories only burn brighter when they're shared. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more cinematic stories, and comment your city below, so we know from where across the world you're joining this community. Until the next story, stay human.